Gunfire ripped through the night as Zarembeki stumbled backward, her bare feet sliding across the cold marble floor. The scream tore out of her chest before she could stop it. Men in black poured through the shattered glass doors, weapons raised, shouting in languages she barely understood. One of them reached for her. A blur of steel and fury intercepted the man. Blood sprayed. The body hit the floor. Zara dropped to her knees, shaking violently. Kang Tail stood between her and death. His suit splattered red, eyes empty and merciless. For a moment she forgot how to breathe. That night changed everything. Before the violence, before the blood, before she learned what kind of man her husband truly was, Zara had been just a girl trying to survive. She was 18 years old when her world was sold. 18 when her father knelt in front of a Russian devil and begged for one more chance. 18 when her name became currency. Zarembeki was forced to marry a 45-year-old Korean Mafia boss, known in every criminal circle across Boston as Iron Blood. Before I tell you how she ended up trapped in a mansion guarded by killers, married to a man feared by entire syndicates, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button and subscribe. And if you've ever been trapped in a situation you didn't choose, this story is for you. The knock on the door came at midnight. Zara was sitting on the edge of her bed in their tiny Boston apartment, counting the cracks in the wall because it helped distract her from the hunger twisting in her stomach. Her mother had been gone 3 years. Her father barely spoke anymore. Debt had crushed the life out of him. The knock came again. Harder. Her father froze. Zara felt it instantly. That heavy silence that meant danger. "Don't open it," she whispered. But he was already standing. When the door opened, the hallway filled with shadows. 3 men stepped inside. Their coats were expensive. Their eyes were dead. Dmitry Volkov did not enter at first. His voice came from the hallway like a funeral bell. "Your time is finished." Zara's father dropped to his knees. "I can pay," he begged. "I swear I can." Dmitry finally stepped into the light. Tall, silver-haired, smiling like he was amused by suffering. His gaze shifted to Zara. And stopped. She felt it. That sick feeling of being chosen. "There is another way to pay," Dmitry said calmly. Zara's father turned slowly. "No." Dmitry smiled wider. "Yes." 2 hours later, Zara was being driven through the city in a black car with bulletproof glass, her hands shaking violently in her lap. Her father's scream still rang in her ears. They didn't take her to Dmitry. They took her to Kang Tail. The mansion loomed like a fortress surrounded by steel gates and armed guards. Zara barely remembered walking through the doors. Everything after that blurred into shock. She remembered the wedding dress. White. Heavy. Too expensive for her kind of life. She remembered the silence in the grand hall. She remembered finally seeing the man she had been sold to. Kang Tail stood at the altar like a statue carved from ice and authority. His face was sharp, unreadable. His eyes were so dark they felt endless. He did not smile. He did not look at her with hunger. He looked at her like a responsibility. Zara hated him instantly. "I will not submit to you," she said the moment they were alone. Her voice shook but she forced every word out. "You can own the contract, but you do not own me." Kang Tail studied her quietly. "You defy me because you are afraid," he said. "I defy you because you disgust me." Silence stretched. Then, unexpectedly, he turned away. "You will not be touched," he said coldly. "Not until you choose." That was the first crack in the monster she thought she married. Her room was a palace. Silk sheets. Gold fixtures. A balcony overlooking the ocean. Everything screamed luxury. Still felt like a prison. Cho Sungmin became her shadow. Always nearby. Always silent. "You're my jailer," she snapped one morning. "No," he replied. "I'm the reason you're still alive." She learned quickly that Kang Tail ran more than just crime. His empire was layered with legal businesses, underground weapons, and deals that shifted entire cities. Danger followed him like breath. And danger now followed her. Weeks passed. Zara wasn't allowed outside the gate. No phone. No contact with her family. Legal marriage papers arrived before she even processed the ceremony. She screamed. She cried. She broke things in rage. Kang Tail let her. Until the night she tried to escape. She barely made it halfway down the drive before she was surrounded by guards. Kang Tail met her at the gate, eyes dark with something close to fear. "Do you want to die?" he demanded. "I'd rather die than rot in a cage." His voice dropped. "Outside that gate, Dmitry Volkov owns your death." For the first time, doubt flickered inside her. But hatred stayed. Midway through this story, if you're already locked in and feeling this tension, don't forget to smash that like button and comment if you'd survive a situation like this, because it only gets darker from here. Nights brought nightmares. Zara would wake up screaming. Kang Tail would hear her from rooms away. One night she found him sitting at the edge of the bed when she woke, his face tense. "Why won't you touch me if you're such a monster?" she whispered bitterly. His jaw tightened. "Once before I loved. When she died, everything I touched turned into blood." She didn't ask for details, but the loneliness in his eyes unsettled her more than his violence. Against every instinct, their war turned into conversation. Arguments turned into silence. Silence turned into the strange comfort of two damaged people in the dark. Then the gala invitation arrived. Dmitry Volkov was going to be there. Kang Tail stared at the letter for a long time. "They will try to take you," he said. Zara lifted her chin. "Let them try." That night at the gala, Zara walked beside the deadliest man in Boston, and the war for her life began. And before I continue this story, if you don't want to miss what happens inside that ballroom, subscribe now, because what happens next is where the blood truly starts to spill. The ballroom pulsed with soft golden light, crystal chandeliers reflecting wealth and power across silk gowns and tailored suits. Zara Mbeki felt like a shadow moving through a dream that didn't belong to her. Her arm was looped through Kang Tail's, his grip firm, possessive in a way that sent conflicting chills through her spine. Every eye turned toward them as they entered. She could feel the weight of his reputation pressing against her skin. Whispers followed them like smoke. "That's Iron Blood. Who is the girl? Is that really her husband?" Zara kept her chin high, though her heart thundered violently in her chest. She leaned in close, her voice barely a breath. "They all look like they want me dead." "They're just curious," Kang said calmly. "Dimitri's men are the ones you should fear." Her stomach twisted at the sound of that name. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter floated. The orchestra played on like this was just another elegant night in Boston. And yet death stood behind every smile. Then the temperature shifted. Zara felt it before she saw him. Dmitry Volkov stood across the room like a king surveying a conquered land, his silver hair gleaming under the lights, his lips curved in that same slow, poisonous smile. His eyes found hers instantly, and he smiled wider. Zara froze. Kang Tail's body went rigid beside her. "Do not look away," Kang murmured. "Fear is a language men like him understand well." Dmitry lifted his glass slowly in their direction. "A toast. To war." Kang guided Zara through the crowd, never turning his back. Dmitry approached with deliberate steps, his presence slicing through conversations like a blade. When he stopped in front of them, the air turned cold. "You clean up well, Iron Blood," Dmitry said smoothly. "And the little bride exquisite." Zara felt Kang's hand tighten around hers. "She is not for your eyes," Kang replied. Dmitry chuckled. "You bought her with debt. I sold her survival. We share ownership in a way." Zara finally found her voice. "I belong to no one." Dmitry's gaze slid to her slowly. Defiant. "I like that. It makes breaking you more entertaining." Kang moved instantly. One step forward. The room tensed. "Speak one more word and I will end you here," Kang warned softly. Dmitry laughed. "Not tonight. Too many witnesses. But this ends soon, Iron Blood. One way or another." He leaned closer to Zara. "Your father cries every night." Her breath hitched. Then Dmitry turned and disappeared into the crowd. Zara's knees nearly gave out. "You said he wouldn't touch me," she whispered. "I said I wouldn't let him." They barely had time to regroup. The first gunshot cracked through the orchestra like thunder. Screams erupted. Glass shattered. Guests dove for the floor as chaos ripped the illusion of luxury to shreds. "Down!" Kang roared. Zara felt herself yanked backward as bullets tore through the space they had stood seconds earlier. Kang's guards moved in brutal precision, guns flashing, bodies dropping. Zara crawled behind a marble pillar, hands slick with terror. She saw Kong across the room, moving like something born for war. His shots were clean, efficient, deadly. A man lunged toward her with a knife. Before Zara could scream, Cho Sung-min appeared behind him and snapped his neck with horrifying ease. "Stay low," he ordered. More gunfire. Shattered chandeliers rained glass like deadly snow. Then she saw Dimitri. He stood on the upper balcony, watching it all unfold as if it were theater. Their eyes met, and he bowed. An explosion ripped through the far wall. Smoke swallowed the room. Screams turned desperate. Kong reached Zara just as flames burst through the curtains. His arms locked around her. "Run!" They sprinted through fire and panic, guards forming a moving shield around them. A bullet grazed Kang's shoulder. He didn't slow. As they burst into the night air, the mansion-sized tent behind them collapsed into flame. Sirens wailed in the distance. Cars screeched. Zara collapsed against the limousine, sobbing violently. Kong knelt before her, gripping her face with blood-stained hands. "Are you hurt?" She shook uncontrollably. He said, "My father cries." Kang's expression darkened to something murderous. "He will not touch your family. I swear on every grave I have created." If you're still watching at this point, take 2 seconds to hit that like button and drop a comment, because this is only the beginning of the war, and it gets far worse from here. Back at the mansion, chaos continued through steel and corridors. Medics rushed Kang's shoulder. Zara watched the blood soak the bandages, her chest tightening with something unfamiliar. Fear wasn't the only thing inside her now. She paced the floor, shaking. "You promised I'd be safe." "I never promised safety," Kong said bluntly. "I promised protection. Those are not the same." She spun on him. "You live like this every day. Guns, blood, death. You didn't even hesitate." "I hesitated the last time," he said quietly. "My first love died because I did." The word struck her harder than any gunshot. Silence fell between them. That night Zara refused sleep. Every sound felt like an attack. She curled on the far edge of the bed, staring at the shadows. Kong remained seated in a chair near the door, awake, watching. "Why am I really here?" she asked suddenly. "To stay alive. That's not enough." He didn't respond. "You could have killed him tonight." "You didn't." "Why?" "Because his death would have cost yours within minutes." She swallowed. "Then we're trapped in this forever." "No," he corrected. "Only until the war ends." Days later the rules changed. Kong summoned her to the study. His voice was rigid. "You will have limited freedom. With full escort. Any deviation and it ends." Her breath caught. Freedom. "There is a Tanzanian community center in Dorchester. You will go there. Teach if you want. But you do not leave the secure zone." She stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because captivity will break you," he said coldly. "And broken people make mistakes." The center saved her. Children with familiar accents. Laughter. Stories. Culture. Purpose. For a few hours each day, Zara was no longer a prisoner or a mafia bride. She was simply a young woman trying to breathe again. Then the first warning came. A black car parked across the street every afternoon. On the 4th day, she found a note folded inside her bag. "Your father bleeds slower than you hope." That night, when Kong saw the note, he destroyed half the study in a silent rage. "They are testing how close they can get," Cho Sung-min warned. Zara pressed the paper to her chest. "He isn't done with me." "No," Kong said quietly. "He's just begun. And if you think the gala was brutal, subscribe now because they come for Zara where she feels safest." The children's laughter echoed through the small community center as Zara knelt beside a desk, helping a little boy sound out English words he barely understood. For a few precious hours every day, the weight of guns and guards disappeared. Here she was just Zara again. Not a bride bought with blood. Not the center of a war. "Miss Zara read again," the boy said shyly. She smiled softly. Again. Slowly. The windows were open. Sunlight spilled across the floor. Dr. Helen Wright stood near the doorway watching proudly, her eyes warm with approval. "You're changing their lives," Helen said later as the kids ran out to play. Zara exhaled. They're helping me remember who I was before everything broke. Outside, Cho Sung-min stood beside two guards, scanning every passing car. His posture never softened. Zara noticed the black sedan again. It had been parked across the street every afternoon. Same tinted windows. Same silent presence. Her stomach tightened. That car, it's been there all week. Cho's jaw set. We are aware. On the fifth day, the center was fuller than usual. Parents lingered. Music played softly. Zara helped set up paint supplies near the back rooms with another volunteer. That was when the power died. The lights cut out. Children screamed. Panic rippled. Zara's heart slammed against her ribs. Everyone stay calm. Helen shouted. The back door slammed open. Two masked men rushed in, guns raised. The room exploded into chaos. Zarembeki, one of them barked. Move now. The kids scattered screaming. Parents lunged at their children. One of the kidnappers fired into the ceiling. Zara froze. Then Cho Sung-min burst through the front entrance like a predator unleashed. Gunfire tore through the building. Zara dropped to the floor as bullets shattered tables. A hand grabbed her arm from behind and yanked her backward. She screamed. The world spun. A gun pressed to her head. Cho shot the man between the eyes. But the second attacker had her. He dragged her toward the back exit as guards stormed in. Zara clawed at his grip, her nails breaking against his skin. Let go. Please. He slammed her against the wall, knocking the breath from her lungs. Then a shot rang out. The man collapsed. Zara slid to the floor, shaking violently as Cho reached her. It's over, he said. But she couldn't stop trembling. Minutes later, Kang Tae-il arrived. He took in the broken doors, the shell casings, the crying children, and then his eyes found Zara crumpled against the wall. The sound he made was not human. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, his hands gripping her so tight it almost hurt. Are you injured? His voice fractured. She shook her head, sobbing into his chest. They found me. His jaw clenched. I told you this place was compromised now. I can't breathe locked in your walls, she cried. This was the only thing that made me feel alive. His arms tightened. And he knows that. They returned to the mansion under emergency lockdown. Guards tripled. Gates reinforced. The sea felt like a prison wall. That night, Zara could no longer contain the terror boiling inside her. She stood at Kang's study door long after midnight before finally stepping inside. He was drinking alone in the dark. She didn't bother with politeness. He's using me as bait. Yes. You knew this would happen. Yes. Then why did you let me go? He looked at her with that unreadable stare. Because if I stopped you from living, you would one day choose death instead. Her breath caught. You talk like my life is a chess piece. It is, he said quietly. So is mine. Her hands shook. You live surrounded by violence, Kang Tae-il. But I didn't choose this world. He stood slowly, the weight of his presence pressing into the room. No. You were thrown into it the same way I was. Then why do you still cling to it? For the first time he hesitated. I don't know how to leave without burying everyone first. The words chilled her. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Then she whispered, He will take me one day. His eyes darkened. Only over my corpse. She slept poorly after that, tossing with visions of hands dragging her into darkness. 3 nights later, the second warning arrived. A message played on every screen in the mansion at once. Dmitry Volkov's face filled them all. Smiling. You hide her wonderfully, Iron Blood. But I will have my entertainment. Send her to me, and I will leave your empire untouched. Refuse, and I will start with her village. Zara watched in horror as images of her hometown flooded the screens. Homes, markets, people who had no idea death hovered over their lives. She collapsed to her knees. He'll kill them. Kang shut down the screens with lethal calm. No. He's bluffing. You don't know that. His lips pressed thin. Yes, I do. Because if he kills them, he loses his leverage. Her entire body shook. You're gambling with innocent lives. So is he. You sound just like him. The slap echoed through the room before she even realized she had struck him. Cho Sung-min stiffened instantly. Kang didn't move. Zara stared at her trembling hand in horror. I'm sorry, she whispered. His voice was deadly calm. Your fear makes you reckless. And your power makes you cruel. She ran. All the way back to her room. She locked herself inside and slid to the floor, breathing in broken gasps. That was the night Kang did not sit outside her door. The next morning the compound went silent. Too silent. Cho Sung-min found her in the hallway moments later. His face was pale. She's gone, he said. Zara's heart dropped. Who? Dr. Helen Wright. The center's director. Her protector. Her friend. Zara screamed. If you're still glued to this story right now, hit that like button and drop a comment, because this just crossed the line into full war. They found Helen's abandoned car on the bridge. No blood. No struggle. Just Dimitri's symbol carved into the leather seat. Zara collapsed into sobs. This is my fault. Kang said nothing, but the way his fists trembled told her everything. That night, he came to her room without knocking. He wants you to come willingly, Kang said. And if I don't? Then he will bleed Boston dry until you break. She lifted her tear-streaked face. Then you already lost. He stared at her for a long time. I have never lost a war, he said quietly. Zara's voice was barely a whisper. Then why does this feel like the beginning of the end? And far away in a cold warehouse lit by steel and chains, Dr. Helen Wright waited in silence. The storm hit the shoreline just after midnight, thunder rolling like artillery across the black sky. Zara lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in her body screaming that something was wrong. The mansion was too quiet. No patrol footsteps. No guard radio static. Just the ocean crashing and the sound of her own breathing. Then the power went out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Zara sat up sharply. Cho, she whispered, reaching for the bedside lamp that no longer worked. Glass exploded from her balcony doors. She screamed as masked men poured in through the shattered frame. Rain and wind blasting into the room with them. One slammed into her so hard the air was crushed from her lungs. Another shoved a cloth over her mouth. She fought. She bit. She clawed. A gun cracked across her temple. The world dimmed. As consciousness slipped, she heard gunfire erupt across the mansion. Explosions shook the walls. Distant shouts echoed through corridors. A voice roared her name in pure fury. Kang. Darkness swallowed her whole. Zara woke up tied to a steel chair. Her wrists burned raw against the restraints. Her head throbbed viciously. The air was damp and smelled like rust and oil. A single overhead light flickered. Across from her, Dr. Helen Wright was bound to another chair. Her face bruised but her eyes still burning with defiance. Helen, Zara choked. Tears slid down Helen's cheeks when she saw her. I'm sorry. They came for me because of you. Zara shook violently. This is my fault. Heavy footsteps echoed. Dmitry Volkov stepped into the circle of light slowly, savoring the terror coiling in the room. He clapped his hands once in mock applause. Family reunion, he said cheerfully. How touching. Zara glared at him. If you harm her, I swear. You swear what? Dmitry crouched in front of her. You have no power. He turned to Helen. She cried beautifully for you when we took her. You should feel honored. Zara lunged against the restraints, screaming through her tears. You monster. Dmitry's smile vanished. I am the monster that your husband created, he said coldly. He stood and nodded to a man behind him. A massive screen flickered on. Kang Tail's face appeared. Blood streaked down his temple, eyes burning with lethal focus. He was breathing hard. Explosions thundered behind him. Let her go, Kang said, voice shaking with violence. Dmitry laughed. You finally sound desperate. What do you want? Everything, Dmitry replied calmly. Your ports. Your weapons routes. Your offshore accounts. Your Korean syndicate. And your public surrender. Zara screamed. Don't do this. Dmitry raised a finger for silence. You have 24 hours. If I don't receive what I want. He dragged Helen's chair closer to Zara. I'll carve your world apart piece by piece. Helen whispered through shaking lips. Don't give him anything. Don't you dare. Dimitri leaned close to Zara's ear. Your love will be very educational for him. The screen cut. Silence crushed the warehouse. Zara broke. She sobbed uncontrollably, her entire body shaking in helpless terror. I destroyed his life. I destroyed everyone. Helen forced her head up gently with her bound hand. You didn't choose this. Don't let him make you believe that. Miles away, Kang Tail tore his empire apart with fire. He stormed through the burning compound, executing survivors without hesitation. Cho Sung-min ran beside him, bleeding from a gunshot to the shoulder. They vanished into the shipping district. Cho shouted. Kang's eyes were empty with murder. Mobilize everyone. Drop every pretense. Tonight, I burn Dimitri's world to the ground. Emergency war rooms lit across the city. Weapons were loaded. Loyal syndicates were summoned. Every long-buried alliance was dragged into the open. This was no longer a shadow war. This was open slaughter. If you're still watching right now, hit that like button and comment where you're from. Because from this moment on, nothing in this story survives untouched. Inside the warehouse, time bled slowly. Zara's muscles cramped. Her throat burned from crying. Helen slumped from exhaustion. Dimitri returned at dawn with food. He only offered to one of them. Zara pushed it toward Helen. She needs it. Dimitri laughed softly. Noble. Useless. Very romantic. He knelt in front of Helen. You know, Kang once begged me to spare a woman. Zara's heart stopped. Another innocent caught in his shadow. Just like you. I told him no then too. Helen lifted her chin. You'll die screaming. Dimitri stood and nodded. A man raised a gun. The building shook violently as a distant explosion rocked the warehouse walls. Dimitri's smile widened. He's coming. Gunfire ripped through the far end of the building. Alarms screamed to life. Men shouted in chaos. Zara's breath came in frantic gasps. He'll save us. Helen whispered. Or we die together. The door to the warehouse blew off its hinges. Smoke poured in like a tidal wave. Kang Tail stormed through the fire like a demon, guns blazing, armored and unstoppable. His men flooded in behind him, executing Dimitri's guards with ruthless precision. Zara screamed his name. Kang's eyes found her instantly. Then Dimitri appeared behind him. A single shot rang out. Kang staggered. Zara's scream tore the warehouse apart. Blood exploded across Kang's back as the bullet ripped through his shoulder and out his chest. He didn't fall. He turned slowly. Dimitri backed away in shock. You should be dead. Kang lifted his gun with shaking resolve. I already was when you took her. Fire erupted. Dimitri collapsed. Chaos surged through the warehouse. Explosions tore through the support beams. Flames climbed the walls. Cho Sung-min freed Zara first. She ran to Kang, pressing her hands against his bleeding chest. Don't you dare die, she cried hysterically. He cupped her face with trembling fingers. Not tonight. Helen was freed next. As they ran, a massive explosion tore through the center of the warehouse. Zara was thrown forward violently. Kang shielded her with his body as steel and fire rained down. They escaped seconds before the building collapsed into hellfire. Outside, rain poured through smoke and flame. Zara collapsed beside Kang as medics rushed in. She clutched his face with shaking hands. You chose me over everything. He swallowed blood. I chose you the moment I realized you were the only thing that could still kill me. She broke down completely. The war was not over. But neither were they. And if you think this rescue ended the nightmare, subscribe now, because in the next part the real betrayal finally surfaces. The city did not sleep after the warehouse burned. News bled through underground channels within hours. Dmitri Volkov was dead. His main operations were ashes. Boston's criminal underworld tilted violently, power shifting like tectonic plates beneath the streets. But inside Kang Tail's empire, something far more dangerous than bullets began to move. Silently, Zara stayed beside his hospital bed for 3 days straight. Machines beeped steadily. Bandages covered his chest and shoulder. Tubes ran from his arms. The man who once ruled fear itself lay unervingly still. She held his hand through every fevered twitch, every labored breath. You promised me, she whispered again and again. You promised you wouldn't die. On the 4th day, his eyes finally opened. Zara let out a broken sob of relief. Don't ever do that to me again. His weak smile barely touched his lips. You make impossible demands. For a moment, everything felt safe. That illusion didn't survive the morning. Cho Sung-min stood at the foot of the bed with a tablet in his hand, his expression unreadable. Internal networks were compromised during the rescue. Kang's jaw tightened. Meaning? Someone leaked warehouse access routes, weapons logs, guard rotations. Dimitri knew exactly when you would arrive. Zara's chest tightened. That means there is a traitor inside our walls, Cho finished. Within hours, arrests rippled through Kang's syndicate. Trusted men were dragged from their posts. Interrogations turned brutal. Blood surfaced but no truth followed. Then the encrypted logs were decrypted. And Zara's name appeared. Every private movement. The community center schedule. Escort routes. Even the night she had visited the study during lockdown. All exposed. All traceable to her personal security channel. The room turned cold. Zara stared at the screen in disbelief. That's impossible. I don't even have access to half of this. Cho did not respond. Kang remained silent for a long time. Then he finally looked at her. Not with anger. With doubt. That look shattered her. You think I betrayed you, she whispered. Data does not lie, he said quietly. Tears burned her eyes. But people do. You taught me that. Silence fell like an execution sentence. I endured captivity, gunfire, kidnapping, torture. I watched you bleed for me, she said, voice shaking. And you think I would sell you? I think fear makes people desperate, he replied. Her breath broke. Then you never knew me at all. Guards escorted her from his hospital room that same hour. Back inside the mansion, the walls no longer felt like protection. They felt like judgment. Phones were removed. Escorts doubled. Doors locked electronically. Even Cho Sung-min barely met her eyes. She was a suspect now, not a wife. Zara spent long hours alone staring at the ocean, realizing something far more devastating than captivity had returned. Isolation. Midway through this story, if you're still emotionally locked in, hit that like button and drop a comment, because this part breaks the story wide open. 3 nights later, Kang returned to the mansion. He did not come to her room. He went straight to the war chamber. Zara overheard fragments through the walls. Funds diverted. Port sabotage. 3 shipments burned. His empire was bleeding from internal strikes. And every new attack traced back to the same channel. Hers. Zara confronted him in the hallway near dawn. You won't look at me, she said. He stopped but didn't turn. Say it, she demanded. Say you think I'm the traitor. When he finally faced her, his eyes were exhausted shadows. I am not ready to give someone that much power over my death again. You think I want your death? She cried. I think someone does, he replied. Her voice collapsed to a whisper. If you don't trust me, then everything we survived was meaningless. Pain flickered across his face. But he still did not reach for her. The final blow came 2 days later. They found the financial signature buried beneath the attacks. Not Zara. Not even the community center. The leak was routed through a dormant offshore shell account long abandoned by Kang's empire. One created by a former partner long erased. Rinnomi. Cho Sung-min stood in the war chamber staring at the screen in disbelief. She was never cut off completely. Only hidden. Kang's face emptied of color. She used Zara as camouflage, Cho said quietly. She planted false signatures inside Zara's channel weeks ago. Every movement Zara made was mirrored by Rin's execution team. Silence tore through the room. Zara's knees gave out as the truth crushed down on her. She wanted us to destroy each other, Zara whispered. Kang did not answer. He turned and left the war chamber without a word. When he entered Zara's room minutes later, she was sitting on the floor trembling. You doubted me, she said softly without looking up. He walked to her slowly and knelt in front of her for the first time since she'd known him, and bowed his head. I am sorry, he said. The words were quiet, but in his world they were seismic. Zara broke into sobs instantly. You abandoned me when I needed you most. I did, he whispered, because part of me still believes love is weakness. She lifted his face with shaking hands. Then let it destroy you. But don't let it destroy us. His eyes filled with something he'd buried for years. Fear. Regret. Need. From that night on, nothing was hidden between them again. The war shifted. Rin Nomi resurfaced like a ghost flooding Kang's servers with threats. You chose the girl. Now lose everything. Ships were torched. Allies slaughtered. Police investigations suddenly targeted Kang's legitimate companies. Arrest warrants began stacking quietly in lower courts. It was no longer criminal war. It was psychological annihilation. Zara watched the empire she once feared unravel around him. And for the first time, Kang leaned on her instead of hiding behind steel. I am tired of killing, he admitted one night, head resting against the window. But I do not know who I am without war. Zara stepped beside him. Then we find out together. Another video arrived at dawn. Rin Nomi stood in shadow, smiling. You took Dimitri from me. Now I take your future. I have one final gift prepared for your wife. And with that, Dr. Helen Wright's bound image appeared on screen. Zara screamed. Cho Sung-min turned pale. She was moved during the chaos. We lost her trail. Kang's fists clenched violently. Rin's voice echoed through the chamber. Come find us. Alone. Or she dies. Zara stepped forward without hesitation. Then we're going. Kang turned sharply. No. This is a trap. Everything has been, she replied. But she risked her life for me. I won't run again. Silence thundered between them. Then Kang said quietly, if you walk into that warehouse, there may be no rescue this time. Zara met his gaze with steel in her voice. Then we finish it. The final war had begun. And if you think the last rescue was brutal, subscribe now. Let me know if you're enjoying this story in the comment section, because what comes next leaves nothing standing. The first thing Zara noticed when Kang returned from the emergency council meeting was that he didn't look at her. Not once. He walked past her like she was part of the furniture, his jaw tight, his hands stained with fresh blood that wasn't his. Cho Sung-min followed behind him, face unreadable, eyes avoiding hers. Her chest tightened. Something had cracked. She followed Kang into the private study, heart pounding with every step. Say something, she said. Don't shut me out again. Not after everything. He finally turned, and the look in his eyes made her stomach drop. Cold. Guarded. Wounded. You were in the East Wing last night, he said. Yes. You know that. I couldn't sleep. And you accessed the security terminal at 2:13 a.m. Her breath caught. I checked the camera near the nursery because I heard a noise. You also accessed the shipping ledger. Her voice faltered. No, I didn't. He stepped closer, towering over her. A container was redirected at 2:14 a.m. The same container that carried my men into an ambush an hour later. Her entire body went cold. Zara, he said slowly, carefully, like he was handling a loaded weapon. The orders came from your login. Tears exploded in her eyes instantly. That's impossible. I don't even know how to move shipments. Cho finally spoke from the doorway. The command code was verified. It bypassed biometric locks. Zara's legs weakened. So now you think I set your men up to die? Kang didn't answer. That silence hurt more than a slap ever could. They were screaming your name on the radio while they bled out, he said quietly. Her sob broke loose. You think I would do that to you? I don't know what to think anymore, he replied. Those words shattered what was left of her chest. Guards appeared behind her moments later. Kang didn't call them in. But he didn't stop them either. Zara was taken back to her room under armed watch. Her phone stripped away. Her access revoked. Her freedom erased again, not by enemies this time but by the man she loved. She collapsed onto the floor when the door sealed. I didn't do anything, she whispered to the empty room. I didn't. That night, the mansion fell under siege. 3 supply depots burned before dawn. One accountant was found hanged in his office. Fake evidence poured into the media, stirring police investigations into Kang's legal businesses. Every attack traced back to Zara's former access trail. Her name contaminated everything. By morning, half the syndicate believed she was Rin Nomi's sleeper agent. Even Cho began to doubt. Zara heard the whispers from the hallway. She played him. She waited until he was weak. She's the real snake. Hours later, Kong stood in the interrogation room, staring at security footage again and again. Zara's login, Zara's movement, Zara's trail. But the emotional timeline didn't fit. The betrayal made sense logically, but emotionally it made no sense at all. Cho broke the silence. Boss, if she wanted you dead, you would already be dead. Kong said nothing. Zara refused to eat. She refused to sleep. She paced until her feet bled, replaying every moment that could have been manipulated. Every time she had entered a room, every time she had leaned on a terminal, every moment Rin might have watched her. On the third night, a message arrived on Kang's personal device. A single video. Rin Nomi's face appeared in shadow, smiling. She looks beautiful when she's accused of treason, Rin said softly. Does she know how easily she broke your empire? Kong went still. Rin continued. I mirrored her shadow weeks ago. Every step she took, I took with her. Every access she made, I wore her fingerprint. His eyes darkened. She doesn't even know she's still my weapon, Rin whispered. And neither do you. The video ended. The room went silent. Cho slowly exhaled. She was framed. Kang's chest tightened painfully. Guilt slammed into him like a knife. He didn't hesitate this time. He went straight to Zara's room. The guards opened the door, startled by the speed of his steps. Zara was sitting against the wall, knees drawn to her chest, eyes red and hollow from crying herself empty. He stopped in front of her. The distance between them felt wider than the entire war outside. I was wrong, he said. She didn't look up. I broke you when you were already bleeding, he continued. And I may never forgive myself for that. Slowly she lifted her eyes. You already punished me. What more do you want? I want you to live, he said. And I want your forgiveness, though I don't deserve it. Tears spilled again as her voice cracked. You believed them over me. I believed my fear. That's worse, she whispered. Kong sank to his knees in front of her. My world taught me that the people closest to you are the first to kill you, he said. And you taught me that the people closest to you are the only ones worth dying for. Her breath shook. I chose survival over trust, he said. And I lost you because of it. She reached out slowly, touching his face. Don't ever do that again. He closed his eyes under her touch. I swear. If you're still watching this far, this is the moment the entire story flips. Tap that like button, drop where you're watching from in the comments, and stay with me because the next turn is where hearts are truly tested. Rin struck again that same night. She shut down 3 banks tied to Kang's shell networks, froze payments to multiple safe houses, released surveillance clips anonymously of Zara being dragged by guards, fueling public scandal. The message was clear. She wasn't done destroying them psychologically. Then the final threat arrived. A live feed activated on Kang's screen without warning. Dr. Helen Wright appeared bound to a metal chair, blood streaking from her temple. Zara's scream cut through the chamber. Rin's voice echoed. She saved your little bride. So now she pays for it. Kang's hand shook with rage. Come alone, Rin continued. Or her heart stops on camera. Zara stepped forward without thinking. We go now. Kong turned sharply. Absolutely not. She's going to die because of me, Zara cried. She's going to die if you walk into Rin's hands. Zara met his eyes with a fire that terrified him. Then teach me how to survive her. Silence stretched between them. Cho finally spoke. We can't track Rin without activating the trap. Kong closed his eyes slowly. He had reached the point of no return. We go together, he said at last. But if she points a gun at you, Zara cut him off. You won't hesitate. I know. Their eyes locked. For the first time they both understood the price of the end. Rin had taken their trust. Now she wanted their lives. And the war was about to turn into a slaughter. The warehouse sat on the edge of the dead docks like a rotting beast, windows shattered, rust bleeding down its steel ribs. Rain hammered the roof in violent sheets as Kang's car rolled to a silent stop at the entrance. Zara's heart slammed against her chest. This is where everything ends, she whispered. Kong didn't answer. His jaw was locked with the kind of tension that only comes when a man knows he is about to walk into hell willingly. They stepped out together. The doors creaked open on their own. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. Dr. Helen Wright sat bound to a chair at the center of the warehouse, her face bruised, her breathing shallow but steady. Behind her, shadows shifted. Then Rin Nomi stepped forward. She looked calm, almost serene. "I wondered how long it would take you to find me," Rin said, her voice smooth as poison. "You're late." Zara took a step forward. "Let her go. This is between you and us." Rin smiled at Zara with something close to affection. "You were never meant to survive. That was your only flaw." Kong shifted slightly in front of Zara. "Touch her and you die." Rin laughed softly. "You already died the night you chose her over me." With a single snap of Rin's fingers, the warehouse erupted. Lights blazed on. Armed men poured out from behind crates. Guns rose. Safety clicks echoed like thunder. Kong reacted instantly, shoving Zara behind steel beams as gunfire exploded. Bullets ripped through metal. Concrete shattered. The air filled with smoke and screaming metal. Cho Sung-min's voice crackled over Kang's calm. "Snipers on the east support beams. I've got visual." Kong fired back, moving with deadly precision. Zara stayed pressed to the cold steel, heart pounding as the world collapsed into violence around her. Rin moved calmly through the chaos, walking toward Dr. Helen. "You love to save broken girls," Rin called out over the gunfire. "First Zara, then the doctor. You never learn." Kong saw Rin raise her weapon toward Dr. Helen's head. "Rin!" Zara screamed. Before Kong could move, Zara sprinted forward. Time slowed. Gunfire roared. Rin fired. Kong dove. The bullet struck Zara in the shoulder, spinning her violently to the ground. Everything stopped. Kong reached her in seconds, hands trembling as blood soaked through her clothes. "No. No, no, no. Stay with me. Stay with me." Zara's breath stuttered. "I told you, don't hesitate." White-hot fury tore through Kong like wildfire. He stood, and everything in him snapped. In under 30 seconds, the warehouse turned into a slaughter. Kong moved like death itself, every shot clean, every strike final. Cho's snipers erased the remaining gunmen from the beams. Screams dissolved into silence, until only Rin remained. She stood frozen near Dr. Helen, her gun empty, her smile finally gone. Kong walked toward her slowly, eyes dark with something far more terrifying than rage. "You took my weakness," he said quietly. "So now I take your future." Rin lifted her chin. "You think killing me ends this?" "No," he said. "But it ends you." Before he could fire, Zara's weak voice echoed from the floor. "Kong, don't." He turned to her immediately, horror and fear ripping through his chest again. "Why?" "Because if you become her, then she still wins." Tears blurred his vision. Behind him, Rin lunged. The shot rang out. Cho fired from the shadows. Rin collapsed to the floor, eyes wide with disbelief, blood blooming across her chest. Her war was over. Kong dropped beside Zara again, hands shaking violently as he pressed pressure to her shoulder. "Help is coming. You hear me? You are not dying. Not today. Not ever." Her lips trembled into a weak smile. "You finally sound scared." "I have always been scared," he whispered. "I just never had anything worth fearing to lose." Dr. Helen was freed within seconds. Emergency sirens howled in the distance. Zara was rushed into Kang's arms as they moved her toward the exit. Blood soaked his suit. He didn't care. At the hospital, time became meaningless. Hours bled into silence. Surgeons worked. Machines beeped. Kong sat unmoving outside the operating room, hands red, eyes empty. Cho stood nearby, silent for once. "If she dies," Kong said quietly, "my world ends with her." After 6 endless hours, the doors finally opened. The surgeon removed his mask. "She survived," he said. "The bullet narrowly missed her lung. She'll heal." Kong broke. Not loudly. Not violently. He simply covered his face and let out a broken breath that sounded like his soul returning to his body. When Zara woke hours later, Kong was beside her bed. She smiled weakly. "You look terrible." "I look alive," he replied. Tears slid silently down his face as he bent to press his forehead against hers. "You saved me from becoming a monster again." "You were never the monster," she whispered. "You were just lost." Weeks passed. Rin's network collapsed under seized accounts, arrests, and public exposure. Kang dismantled the remaining syndicate from the inside and disappeared from the criminal world entirely. They moved to the coast. To silence. To healing. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the ocean, Kang stood beside Zara on the balcony. "I spent my whole life destroying," he said quietly. "Now I want to build something that can't be taken from me." Zara reached for his hand. "Then build it with me." He dropped to one knee without warning. Cho nearly choked from behind them. Kang looked up at her. "I don't know how to love safely. I only know how to love fiercely. And if that is not enough..." Zara cut him off with a sobbed laugh. "It's all I ever wanted." When he slid the ring onto her finger, the ocean roared like it was celebrating with them. And right here at the end of this story, if you stayed through betrayal, blood, sacrifice, and survival, do not leave without tapping that like button, subscribing for more emotional stories like this, and dropping a comment to tell me what part broke you the most, because this story was written for hearts that understand pain and healing. Zara rested her head against Kang's chest as the sun vanished into the sea. For the first time in their lives, the war was over, and love finally got to begin. The waves crashed against the dock like a heartbeat, furious and relentless. Zara and Kang stood side by side, rain soaking their clothes, hair plastered to their faces. The world they had fought through, the betrayals, the blood, the near-death moments was behind them. And yet, the weight of everything that had happened hung heavy in the air. Zara leaned against Kang's shoulder, exhausted but alive. "Do you realize," she whispered, "that for the first time I don't feel like I'm running from anything?" Kang tightened his arm around her, his hand pressing into her back with a fierceness that had once terrified her but now felt like safety. "I don't know if I've ever truly stopped running," he admitted. "But maybe I stopped running from you." A small bitter laugh escaped her lips, wet with rain. "You're impossible, you know that?" "I was trained to be," he said quietly. "And for the first time, someone taught me how to love without fear." Zara looked up at him. Her eyes, bright with rainwater and tears, searched his face. "I almost lost everything. And it wasn't just the fighting. It was when you doubted me." Kang lowered his gaze, shame washing over his expression. "I know. And I'll never forgive myself for it. I should have trusted you, but fear made me forget what matters most. You." Her hand cupped his cheek, wiping rain and blood from his face, trembling with emotion. "Then never forget it again," she said softly. "Because I'll never leave. Not now, not ever." They stood like that for a long moment, letting the storm rage around them, letting the world catch up to them. Every gunshot, every explosion, every betrayal felt like it had been worth surviving just to reach this. Then Kang smiled, softly, genuinely, and took her hand. "We survived everything. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that we can survive anything together." Zara's heart caught. "Then let's do it," she said. "No more running. No more hiding. Just us." He pulled her close, holding her tight as the wind whipped around them. "Forever," he promised. "Forever and no one else." The storm began to fade, the clouds pulling back to reveal a pale golden sunrise over the ocean. It felt symbolic, like the world was finally giving them permission to breathe, to live, and to love without fear. Zara closed her eyes and whispered, "We made it. We really made it." Kang kissed her forehead, then her lips, and for the first time, their kiss wasn't rushed or full of fear. It was a promise, a vow sealed by fire, blood, and trust regained. And in that moment, she realized something important. Surviving the chaos wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of the life they had fought so hard to have. Weeks later, they moved into a quiet home by the coast. No guards, no hidden cameras, no constant fear. Just them and a chance to heal. Kang started investing in legitimate businesses, slowly leaving the criminal world behind, while Zara poured her energy into expanding her community programs. Their days were filled with laughter, ordinary struggles, and love, the kind of messy, real, imperfect love that neither of them had ever thought they could have. Every night, they shared meals, stories, and long conversations about dreams they had buried for too long. And when Zara finally became pregnant, Kang's eyes shone with a mixture of awe, fear, and devotion. "I'll protect this life," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I'll protect both of you. I promise." Months later, when their daughter was born, named after the woman Kang had once loved and lost. There wasn't a single soul who doubted that these two had survived everything life had thrown at them and come out stronger. They had faced betrayal, death, and darkness together, and their love had survived unbroken. As they stood on the balcony one evening, watching their child sleep peacefully, Zara whispered, "We made it. We really did." Kang pulled her close. "And every day forward we'll choose each other. No matter what." If you've been watching this story from the very start, you know it hasn't been easy. Zara and Kang endured impossible odds, betrayal, and heart-stopping danger. And yet, through all of it, they found trust, love, and a life worth fighting for. Before you leave this video, I want you to do something. Hit that like button right now if this story gave you chills. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story where survival, love, and courage collide. And comment below, where are you watching from? And have you ever been in a situation where you had to fight for someone you love? I want to hear your story. This story isn't just about action or danger. It's about trust, redemption, and the power of choosing love, even when fear tries to take over. If Zara and Kang's journey taught us anything, it's that love is not perfect, but it's worth every battle, every tear, and every moment of chaos. So share this video with someone who needs to hear that no matter what you face, love can survive, heal, and transform everything. And remember, if you stayed until the end, this is your reminder to choose courage over fear, trust over doubt, and love over everything else. Because life is too short to run from it or from each other. Zara smiled as Kang wrapped an arm around her shoulder, the sun spilling golden light over their home. The storm had passed. The world was theirs. And this time there was no war, only life, only love, only them. So go ahead, hit like, subscribe, comment, and share. And never forget, even in the darkest storms, survival and love are always possible.